It hits everyone, but it hits the neurodivergent population differently and deeper. The neurodivergent population is what we say at the bottom of the totem pole. They are impacted the most because even people with a disability, which is a large umbrella, you have people with disability, but you have people with a visible disability, which they all have their own prejudices and biases against them. But if I can see a person has a disability, then I have the opportunity to meet that person halfway and say, okay, well, you have a disability. I'm going to try to accommodate that in any way, shape, or form that I can, or not. And you have that decision up front because you can see that. But neurodivergent people don't show that up front. You don't know that I'm autistic by just looking at me. There are all types of biases and prejudices against, and I want to be make sure to your listeners that bias and prejudice in and of themselves are not bad things. Humans need bias and prejudice in different realms in order to survive. It keeps us safe. It lets us know when we should go left or right. Bias and prejudice are not inherently bad. What's bad is when they show up and when they put one person or a group of people over another group of people in some way, shape, or form at an unfair advantage, and then nothing is done about that. That's when bias and prejudice are rearing their ugly head. So for those people who are looking at neurodiversity as an us versus them, like, that's not me. I don't do that. We have to kind of fix them. It's not a fixing them. And that's one of the things that I talk about in one of my keynotes, is that we're not fixing people. You need to fix your process. Fix the process, not your people. So that's a stigma, that it's something to be fixed. Do you know what a leader looks like? The profile of a leader. What does a leader look like? A leader looks like you and looks like me, because we're all leaders. So a person that doesn't have a leadership title can still be a leader. And a person with a leadership title can be the worst leader in the world. And there's no ideal profile of a leader, because they look like you and they look like me. Because the way that I have described leaders meeting non-leaders in the middle of communication, of honesty and truth and trust, that's what real leadership is made of. Leadership is just strategy and vision. That's a very linear view. And I'm not saying that's the view you have, but that's the common understanding of leadership, is that leaders set the rules, they set the vision, they set the boundaries, and that's a very linear way to look at leadership. That doesn't talk about CQ, cultural intelligence. It doesn't talk about EQ, emotional intelligence. It doesn't talk about sympathy or empathy. It doesn't talk about communication. And now you could say that communication is part of strategy and part of these things. It's part of it, yes, but it's the minority that most people accept or look at. So when they look at strategy, they're like, oh, we're going to be the biggest, the most valuable company on the planet. Okay, well, how are you communicating that strategically and sustainably? How are you achieving that effectively and efficiently with the people that you have? And like you said, that's a skill to be honed and to work on, which is where people like me and people like you come in to have these conversations.